Hey everybody, it's Thursday.
And thank goodness it's Thursday, and welcome to this week's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. Thanks for being here with us this evening. It has been quite the last week. We always start with a fishing report, and sometimes we go out there, we try our best, but this was one of those weeks where I think, man, we've really been on some good bites lately.
Yeah, we've been doing okay, and so we actually have 2 weeks worth of fishing report because last week we didn't get to a show. We actually ended up getting busy and having to get some stuff done last Thursday. We're back this week, and so the previous week, here's my thoughts on it because I'm going to let Emily talk about the 2 weeks because I haven't caught crap for fish. I've gotten lots of bites. And we've put a lot of fish in the boat, but that's not because of me. So Emily, what have you been doing the last couple weeks to kick the crap out of me as far as fishing goes?
Okay, I feel like you have been doing better than maybe you're giving yourself credit for. But okay, that's the problem, is nothing unusual. I guess one of the things that we have been doing is water temperatures have been up and down, and I know that we're going to talk about this with our guest tonight. But one of the things that we have been doing is trying to leave some of the shallows and some of the spawning fish alone. And so we've been looking in some of these deeper waters. It's also given us an opportunity to learn our live scope. So I don't think we talk about all that often. But what that has done is it's put us in a few spots that we maybe don't normally fish. And so we have been able to learn our graph, which has been super fun, but also, dare I say, snipe fish off cribs. So these are all catch and release, right? But it has been a really unique experience. I guess in spring, I always think of how shallow everything is. And to be honest, we've been doing really great on walleye. And, we always do catch walleye here and there. We'll target them once in a while, but we've been honestly doing great for that. And crappies are starting to get to those patterns of summer. So we've been finding all fish relating to structure and wood. I feel like that's almost even giving you too much of our secrets. Not that we're here to hide anything, right? But when we go to any of these lakes that we've been on, regardless of depth of water, what fish have been relating to is wooden structures. 2 weeks ago, maybe a dock or two or whatever. But really, really this past week, those bigger wooden down trees, all of that. So I don't know. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that really points to is that the water temps being so inconsistent, and for us at least being a little bit lower than they usually are this time of year. I think the weeds are taking their sweet time trying to grow up, right? It's kind of like everybody's gardens or maybe even your lawn. It kind of grew up a little bit and just kind of been sitting there just because it's been pretty rainy. It's been a little bit chilly. And then all of a sudden this last week, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like a greenhouse. And then everything kind of popped up. And I really do think even this last weekend, we saw a lot more fish relating to weed lines and starting to set up in a summer pattern. Whereas normally we'd start looking for that, a couple weeks ago. And we've been looking for that ever since for the last probably 3 weeks. So I think it's starting to get there. Water temps are going to start being a little more consistent with warmer night temps. Hopefully we get a break in the rain more than a few hours at a time. But yeah, I think right now, I think you've been using one of your favorite baits. You call the final leech, and
this is not a bait that you can find.
No,
it's bait, and it's a made up name. Don't Google it because it doesn't exist.
But it's the Mojo mold from Do It Molds. There's a bunch of people that have one. Maybe we'll put a picture in the comments. But it's just it's a very nondescript leech mold, but it kind of mimics a minnow sometimes, mimics something that's just swimmy. And I think that the leech bite has been pretty hot and heavy by us. Mostly because of the cooler water temps. Once that water warms up, the fish start hatching, and then you get your minnow bite starts a little bit more. But for us up here, I think, I've been trying a lot more of some micro hard baits from Euro Tackle. I've been trying, the minnow baits that I usually use, and Emily's just been crushing it with her leech type bait. So, just take that into account when you're out there fishing, I guess.
And we are going to continue all of these conversations with our guest tonight because I know that he has a lot to say about all of this. So I guess without further ado, if anybody at home has a fishing report, feel free to share that with us. If you have questions or comments or things along the way, share that with us in the comments as well. Otherwise, Captain Greg, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. So we are always so excited to see you. I feel like we always run into you in like really fun places like expos and events and when good stuff is going on. And so when I see you, I think of fun. But I think a lot of people think that same thing because you put on fishing clinics and events and all kinds of things for all kinds of people. So I guess I'm doing a terrible job at introducing you because you do so much awesome stuff. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you got going on?
I guess basically, I used to be a guide out here on Lake Winnebago and Green Bay. I fished professionally for walleye. Started my nonprofit in 2015, but out of our own pocket from 2009, 2015, we hosted our own fishing clinics. So pretty big on Facebook. Last 2 months, over 10 million people reached just through fishing education. So making a difference out there. And then we host in-person fishing clinics. So I think so far this year, 28, we're about 3,500 people attending. Just got my contract in the mail for the Milwaukee Sports Show, where I'm going to be hosting a fishing clinic on Saturday and Sunday. So I know, well, primetime hours, it's like, hey, I can't complain. So, what's the next thing? What's the next best thing? Fishing? It's talking fishing.
And I think right before the show, we were kind of talking that, this year is kind of, do we say coming a little bit full circle for you? Because you are now coming on 15 years of teaching people all kinds of fishing stuff. Is that true?
Yeah, that is. I mean, today we took kids out fishing and it was my 420th event.
Wow.
So, event, being kids or adults, we teach them all. I mean, it's cool because, this year was the first year I ever did my fishing seminar. So the fishing seminar you've seen, Fishing Basics, I actually was teaching K4 kids because I had teachers say, you know what, you're engaging, you're interesting. These kids will listen to you. So somebody up there has helped me that, hey, people, they want to listen. And if you can get, people to listen and you don't go over their heads, I mean, you can really make great content. And really that's, like all my seminars are more related to fishing, fishing basics, getting people to understand the skills and equipment needed to begin fishing to beyond the basics, which is teaching them about trolling, jigging, but you can do that in our seminar high level. And then what they can disseminate is, okay, what I like, what he said, this is what we're going to go over. And then the nice thing is, my website that I actually built, we have 135 videos out there. So most of the stuff that I talk about, they're going to be able to go back and then play it on our website and say, okay, I want to dig more into how to use an offshore tackle board. And then boom, they can go and do that. And it's just always building content that, you've heard that people want, especially like the Sam's Pro release. So many people said, I don't, it doesn't work. And, we wanted to show them that this Sam's Pro release, it's got to work because we're doing it on salmon. Salmon is one of the strongest fish around to, damage equipment or that. And we're having no issues. And I mean, especially with the Magnum boards, being so big, it's so nice to have that board turn around and you're not fighting the board when you're trying to bring in a big fish. Because if you got a big board and you hit some surging and all that, boom, that big fish could be gone.
I really, I'm maybe lost in all the things that you said, but when you were talking about outreach to kids and teaching them and being captivating, and I think that's super important because what I started to imagine is maybe it's just because I've been there, but when you go to these expos or these events that you host, you were talking about like, oh, having everyone's attention. It's because first of all, you have 8 million hands-on things in the front of the room, right? And so people always want to get up and do that. Right. But I think as you talk to them, the coolest thing about this for me is that, you present this as for kids, for the youth, like come and sometimes you even hand out a free rod so they can leave there and do these things that they're learning. And that's super cool. But when you have a youth, that often depends on, if they need to get to their park, maybe their parents are bringing them or something. And so often they get there and the kid doesn't know what to do. And then it's the parent. And does the parent know what to do? Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think it's really cool that those parents come to that seminar for the kids, but when you can learn something in such an easy format, like internet speak, explain to me like I'm 5. That's exactly what you're doing, is because you're teaching the kids, but you're also teaching the adults at the same time. And so then your next example after that was, let's say that you want to learn something like planer boards. And that's why that's a perfect crossover, is because then all of a sudden that parent that gained that trust from learning those super easy techniques, now they are open to learning those more advanced things. And I think that's exactly one of the keys right now in the fishing world, is kind of taking those people who like maybe are interested in dabbling in fishing, but really have those barriers and really struggle, and then giving them a way to move into being successful.
That is the whole key. If they're not successful, they ain't going to be fishing. And then everything goes down. And that's why, especially families coming together. And that's what's so cool, because if the kids are there and they show interest on wanting to learn how to tie a knot, the parent then picks up interest, because they're like, I don't want my son showing me how to tie a knot I do not know how to tie. But it is, and that's it, and that's how we try to take stuff. We always start stuff at the basic level, and then we always I have another seminar to take it to the next level, because I still remember, Dan and Jeff saying, hey, Greg, those kids that first came to your clinic 10 years ago, they're now 18. So let's give them the next level. And I tell you, those guys did the best thing, and they got me down. And the other thing is, by having, video content, especially throughout your seminar, because the difference between like Beyond the Basics is we show them pictures of equipment and everything, where in Fishing Basics, you show them everything, where they can see that. Because the other nice thing is, if you're working with a younger group, if they see their peer group being able to do that, it isn't, oh, look at this old man, he can do it, he's been fishing for a long time, but they see somebody their age and says, oh, okay, if they can do it, I can do it.
Well, and one thing I really enjoy one thing that we enjoy about you, and I hope you enjoy it about us, is like, it's very easy for a lot of people that promote the sport to forget that there's a million different types of hooks and a million different types of line and a million different types of everything. And that's like everybody's number one barrier. They go walk into the Walmart, like the Fleet Farm, that you walk into the fishing aisle and just like look around and go, well, I'm out because this is too much. But we really encourage, when we meet people, we'll be like, hey, go check out Captain Greg and go check out Learn to Fish with us, because they like go through all of that and stuff. And we try and disseminate a little bit of that on like a lot more of the tackle side, just because we have a lot of that knowledge. But like, that's why we like the whole setup. And like you were saying, so you're saying Dan and Jeff, those are the two guys responsible for the Wisconsin Fishing Expo and the Wisconsin Ice Fishing Expo now. And they've had you on their ride for, like you said, like 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, forever. I started with the old crew.
Yep.
And then, got in with the new crew. And it's like, hey, I mean, and how awesome to be able to have your own room to be able to do that. Because I think if you can do that, you get people to feel a little more comfortable. you're closer, so that you can easily present it. So I tip my hat off to to them, because to me, the other thing I really appreciated about their, Wisconsin Fishing Expo is being family oriented. I
Mhm.
mean, they bring their family, and you got to have something for the kids, and they always have, because, you just feel like if you drag somebody along, everybody should be able to have something at
Yep.
that show.
Yeah, I agree. And you're and we have to tip our hats to you, and we try to every time, because we try and get into, you're probably one of the only seminars, not saying that the other seminars don't have a lot of attendance, because a lot of times they do, but like we try and get into yours to, like, take some pictures, or it's like packed, like standing room only, like parents are like stuffed in there, and the kids are stuffed in there, and everybody's having a great time, and like it's awesome to just see
Well,
that.
and that's it. You just appreciate, that you have venues like this, and they help you out, because, they also help learn to fish with us, with their donation, we're able to go and host fishing clinics, because we came and we all partnered together.
Mhm.
That's how you get great things done. You get great things done by partnering with great people.
Yeah.
It was so funny, because you were talking about one other thing, and that like the crankbaits, a lot of people don't realize, the one thing that I always make sure to do is, when I run a side, I run the same crankbait on all three lines, not different colors, but that way I know I'm working the water column. Because to
Mhm.
me, number one thing is having something that's bouncing on the rocks, because I'm a jigger, but I do like trolling, because my wife loves trolling. So I like trolling. And what I like trolling is shallow water rock. I like trolling, structure that's between 4 and 6 feet. And
Mm.
that's how I caught all my walleyes on, yesterday's Facebook post. I think our deepest walleye maybe caught was 7 feet, but
Wow.
you got to play dirtiness and everything. And what it is it allows me to use different lures. You don't want to get always hooked in the same, you know, using this, because do you know what my favorite lure is?
What?
My ultimate favorite lure is the hot and tot.
Oh,
You know,
I've heard of that one.
and that is it was made by Storm, by Dave Storm, a long time ago, before Rapala bought them out, and then they started making them. But oh, and the nice thing is you can run a Hottentot at about 1.2, 1.3, and you can run a Hottentot at 3.5.
Oh,
It's one
wow.
of the most versatile baits at speed. And the other nice thing is, I love using Fireline, because I just think with my soft rod tips, and Fireline, I can really connect up with them fish 100% of the time, and get those hooks in there. But I can get them down to 16, 17 feet. So when I was fishing professionally, everybody knew me as, he's the mud Hottentot guy, because they knew that I would run Hottentots in the mud and stir it up, and then have, get a lot of fish to hit that way.
Huh.
That's
That's cool.
cool. That's really funny. Okay, so when I hear you say that you're trolling like 4 to 6 feet, one of the things that I think of is that we will troll for crappies. I don't know, honestly, similar depth.
Mhm.
But what I am doing is just with like a 16, 32nd ounce jig, something in there, and like usually a plastic. So are you just like straight line trolling, or are you hooking up your planer boards? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So what we're doing is, just a minute here. I was at a fishing clinic, and I told them I'd create a Flickr album. So everybody's sending me their pictures now. That's what happens when you choose to be the lead guy. So it's like, okay, we got to turn this thing off. But when we troll shallow rocks, I mean, the biggest thing I say is, I have live scope on my boat, but what I'm doing, I'm actually using side imaging, because what side imaging does, it tells me where the rock piles are. Some of these fish weren't on the rocks, so you could actually see them pretty good when they're laying on sand, so I could see them. But I keep my boards very close to the boat because I know personally I'm using my kicker with a kicker handle. So I do everything using the handle so I can say precisely on the rock piles. And that's it. I spent a lot of time looking for the rock piles, and now I just make sure that I hit all my waypoints so I go right over the rock piles or off to the sides. And that's it. I mean, we'll run lines to where 2 feet off the bottom to where they're, every so often they might get snagged up because sometimes that's what it takes to trigger them. The other big thing is just the color of water. I mean, people don't understand how the color of water makes a big difference. If it's too dirty, tough time to catch a fish. But if it's too clean, tough to catch fish. And the fish won't be in 4 to 7. But the one thing that's consistent, especially today we got a northeast wind out here on Lake Winnebago. That is the time to be pulling rocks because the mud fish and everything really, really like to turn off when northeast winds come.
So one of the reasons that I love to talk to you is because you talk about Lake Winnebago like it's a place you could just like hop in and like catch fish. And I know that that's true. But I also know it's a lake where people really struggle. So I'm not going to ask you for your secret, but how do you begin to break it down and crack this mystery?
Get out on the water. Get out on the water. I mean, this year on the Winnebago system, so that's Poygan, Winneconne, Butamore, Bagel, the river system, 56 gills over 9 inches. So used to travel to Madison because I love fishing Madison. I was out there 2 weeks ago, shot a video that we just put on Facebook. I just, the reason I like traveling for bluegills is because so many different lakes have so many different colors. I mean, this year I actually caught some pinkish looking bluegills out here on Bagel.
Those are nice ones.
I've only ever seen those in the river. I know what you're talking about.
You get purple, you get blue. I tell you, people are like, I mean, I love fishing big fish. So if you were to go to Facebook and see, you'd see a couple of weeks ago we were on a big bass bite, largemouth, smallmouth. I went out salmon fishing. I'll be going walleye fishing in August. It's like I just love chasing big fish. I don't care about quantity. I care about quality. And the quality I care about is putting that fish back. So that's another big thing I promote, especially like bluegills. Bluegills, they are so needed in the environment to protect the beds, to just to have good genes in the genetics in the system. I mean, there's just so much in there. And that's the reason I take a picture. I love the board that I have. It shows easily the numbers and people can see, yep, that's a 9-inch bluegill because, I mean, I'm not saying anything, but all these people that are telling me they got 11-inch bluegills and everything, I'm like, oh, can I see a picture? And I never see a board with the 11-inch bluegill. Board doesn't lie.
Yeah.
But the bluegills, I mean, catching those, I mean, we were catching 8-inch gills, and I mean, you should see the battle. You should see that rod bending. I mean, they're just as fun. And I live on a perch lake too. I mean, one of these times we'll get hooked up, especially perch fishing. Oh, you guys would have a blast because it's all you. It's you and the fish.
Well, I think I like what you're saying though, is like when you're a big fish fisherman, because that's what everyone strives for. We all want to go out there and catch the big one, right? But I think we probably talk about this a lot, is when you're looking for fish, sometimes those big fish are not where the small ones are, and sometimes they break up. Sometimes there's all kinds of groups of fish and that's cool. But when you are a big fish fisherman, that is different than just any other kind of fishing. And so I love this like springtime, people go out to like these little docks and catch these little bluegills and like hope for a big one. And sometimes maybe people get lucky and that's super, super cool. But I love hearing what you're saying about like going and hunting for the big ones, because I feel like sometimes that's really what you have to do.
And the other thing that I liked when you started off the show, I'm a big proponent to not fishing fish on beds. So in this video, I made sure to let everybody know post spawn is the time to chase these fish, because once they are gone, or there's still some males hanging around the beds, I mean, so many scavengers come on. I mean, in the Madison Lake, the reason I like it is we catch some mega perch that come in and they're going right along the bed, swimming around. And we were catching walleyes. I mean, it's amazing, all these fish and how they'll scavenge on what's left on those beds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you won't see me fishing bedded fish, either bass or that. I take a break or something, go find some other fish to chase.
Well, and that's what we did, because I mean, I don't mean to come back to this already when I mentioned this in the show, but I was truly shocked. We went out by some cribs, 15, 16 feet of water, whatever. And we honestly, live scope is new to us, newish. And so we're still, acclimating and pressing the buttons and doing the things and learning and all of that. And I knew that, well, I hope that we could find some crappies like schooled over the cribs. I don't know. But what I was shocked about is the number of different walleyes. I think they're all walleyes. Some may be pike, but we found a lot of pike really shallow. So, but you could see them like really as if there's a crib like right in front of me, because that's how I saw it on the graph, right? But you could see them like march in, like swim right in. And I guess I just really learned from that, because I had always been told like, oh, spring fish are shallow, fish are shallow. And it's like, yes, some are. But I guess I didn't realize how many of those fish were still out deep. And I don't know. I know that there's probably really good walleyes shallow too, but I felt like a lot of the deep ones were like the big ones.
Well, and I think in our case too, like going back to the beginning of the show when we're talking about how there hasn't been very much vegetation as of, until recently. And so fish are searching, the fish that are done spawning are searching for structure to relate to, because that's where the bait's going to be. And I think right now, with the water being a little bit cooler and still a little bit homogenized with all the rain and the wind, because we're waiting for that thermocline. That's when that summer pattern starts, is when you get that thermocline, and then you can kind of find the floor to the warm water. We're not getting that, and it either except out deep. And so that's why these walleyes, they've been done for a while, and they're picking, I think what they're doing is they're out there on those cribs picking off leeches off of those cribs, because a lot of times you were fishing and not necessarily on the live scope. You were just using the live scope to kind of cast towards like the structure, but you were dragging your bait towards the bottom, and I would be looking at the screen, like adjusting it, keeping it on the crib, and I'd see a walleye shoot out from the crib because it saw your bait coming past it. And I think that's what they're doing, is they're out there picking those things, because there was some bait up top, smaller marks, and it might have been small bluegills or something like that. But those fish on the bottom were really just like zooming around and smacking your bait. You had some really nice fish. So yeah, I think like what you said is like maybe some of those places that you don't necessarily think of this time of year, it's worth checking out, especially if you're trying to give those bedding fish a break.
And see, that's a good point. I mean, to me, I talk to everybody. You don't need a great boat.
No.
You need a great trolling motor, and you need one good graph.
Yep.
If you can have those, a good trolling motor, good graph, everything else is going to work out. You just need something to float, get out there. But I have live scope, and I just, for one, people got to realize it's going to take time and patience to get your setup right. Not everybody can take numbers, or settings from one live scope unit and move it to another and expect the same results. You got to find out your color palette that you love, because so many people love all these different colors, and I still, other thing is I still have the old Panoptics on my current boat, which is down imaging on the back, so I don't have to do anything. We like it when we're trolling, because we can see how fish are swimming off, or if they're swimming up, and stuff like that, and really understand that. But side imaging, I mean, side imaging. I mean, we went up to Ocano, and we were fishing up there, never even used my live scope. I brought it, And all I did was side image, and because especially up there, because it was so sandy, you can easily see fish. And if I saw 6 fish finally on the screen, then we'd cast at them. If it was 1 or 2, we just keep moving along, because they aren't always going to be the walleyes. They could be suckers. They could be,
Yeah.
I mean, they could be anything.
Yeah, and going back to just talking about like equipment, you know, you don't. One thing that I like to tell people is exactly what you said, is that a good trolling motor, a boat that floats, and some sort of graph. And one thing that we like to preach on is that getting stuff for multi-season use. And so if all you can get is like a 14-foot John boat, and you have a decent trolling motor, and you can get the battery set up in it, look for like a Helix 7 or one of the smaller Garmin's, or something that you can put the side imaging on. It doesn't have to be a giant screen, and you might not want it, because then you could put it on its own battery pack and use it also for ice fishing, and have those waypoints that you find in the summer will be there for you in the winter. So you can go fish the rock piles and fish those cribs and all those things. And you can be just as effective as some of those big boats with 8 screens on it with a unit like that. And that side imaging, I think that's always going to be probably the best technology for fishermen, just because you can cover so much water at the same time. And the only positioning you have to do is steer your boat.
That's it. I mean, you know, to be honest, I mean, that is the best versatile tool. I mean, you know, I got live scope. I don't use it because it's a lot of work, especially for me. I mean, like, I have it mounted on a Bruce City 360, because now what I can do is put it in my rod mounts, especially my big boat. So I can put it all 4 corners of my boat, and then I can turn. You know, so I can go wherever I want. So if I'm spot locked, I can have it in the back and then pan. Or if I'm chasing them, I can have them on the front and do it. So is yours mounted to the trolling motor, or do you guys got to put
No, so we're running TKI CNC. They're out of Montana. They have a full system that they developed that is all machined aluminum in the United States, and their mounting system for the live scope is also rod holders. They have this, and they have bases for their rod holders that'll go on tubes, our Alumitrack system, the Lund system, and
that is nice.
Well, and so that makes it worth it, right? You can have a solid rod holder, and like you said, you can move your live scope around the boat without having to move giant stuff.
And that's big. I mean, you know, because I have a 16.5-foot tiller. That's what I use to chase early spring, you know, when I go out to Madison. And then I have my 216 that sits on my lift here.
Yep.
And definitely, you know, on Bagel, you need a bigger boat.
Ask Emily the story about the first time we brought out our boat after we bought it.
We wanted somewhere to like run, you know, and like put some hours on the motor and yada yada. And so we were, I don't know, I was going to say new to the area. That wasn't true, but new to the waters in the area. And we didn't want to go to like a teeny lake and like blow people out. And so we're like, what's a big place? I don't know, Winnebago. So we ended up there, and we got out there, and I don't even remember when we launched. I feel like it wasn't very wavy, but like really quickly after we got there, I was honestly waves big enough that I was holding onto my seat. I'm like, is this what we're in for? Like, we did not get a big enough boat.
You could, I mean, honest to God, in 10 minutes, you could go from flat comb to 5-footers. I mean,
yeah, that's what happened.
And the funny thing is, you did pick the biggest lake in Wisconsin to test on. It wasn't like, you know, you were just upgrading a little bit. You went to the biggest.
Well, okay, so when we looked at where we were geographically, we were honestly surrounded by all such small bodies of water. And I guess I could have gone way north to Shawano, but I've heard that gets crazy, which I guess honestly, it's not that crazy. And maybe that's where I should have gone, but I didn't know that. And I was like, okay, what's another big body of water? Like, I don't know, like the river. But again, that's not what I was looking for. And take your brand new boat out on the river first. Oh gosh, that's scary.
Well, and you know, this is I've been on in and around boats my whole life. My career's based around being on the water. So I it's probably getting up there with probably some of the biggest waves that I've been in. But I was really impressed for a 16-foot boat, like because you know I grew up in this transition era, right, where um you have the boats from the 80, you know, this everything from like 70s till mid 90s, maybe early 2000s was you'd lucky to find a boat that was 70 inches wide. And now everything, if like our boat is 80 inches wide at, you know, at the gunnels, and that's getting narrow. You know, that there's boats that are getting so like driving around something like that. I was like, wow, this for a 16-foot boat, I'm surprised that we didn't capsize. But
Well,
no,
to
it was good.
be honest, a 16-foot boat, I tell you, if I fish the Madison Lakes, maybe Mendota is a little bigger where it could pick up more wind, but I just can't see having to have a bigger boat,
Yeah.
and but I did talk to my little boat and I says, I promise you I will never take you out on rough water and Bago again. Because it has, I mean, I got a 2005 Alumacraft that,
Yeah.
it's still in tip top shape, but it doesn't take much to beat up bullets,
Yeah.
out here, and the other thing is just people don't realize sometimes it's just the driver. Change the driver if you feel a really bad ride,
Yeah.
because you got to learn how to. The big reason we got these motors, my boat probably goes 70 if I really wanted to, get it all specced out, but I don't need to go that fast. I go 40.
Mhm.
I conserve the gas, and I just think, a driver is a big part of it. The reason we got the big motors is so we see the big wave coming, we can back off and then get back on that throttle to keep that boat moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think, just going out there and experiencing waves and stuff like that and just become a better driver, that's going to be good for you, your family, and your boat.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Well, and I think the same goes for the river too. I think that's a whole set of skills that if you can find a decent area of river that isn't too snaggy and is wide enough that you can like practice. I think that's a good set of skills that transitions over to lake fishing quite well. As far as being able to control your boat, right? Because you can't necessarily let go of the motor like you can on a lake because you're going to float away. And so you have to be cognizant of kind of some of that stuff. And yeah, it was really fun fishing the Wolf River for so many years, and yeah, we kind of miss it sometimes.
And what's so funny is, so I'm with the Lake Poygan Sportsman's Club. So we were actually out there with Ed the Diver a
Oh.
couple days ago. And what we were doing is he was diving on the reefs that they made. They implemented artificial reefs years ago. And
Mm.
in order to get permits to put in new ones, they had to go back and do assessment on the ones they put in just to make sure that all the rocks didn't sink below the surface.
Oh, okay.
And what we found is the rocks did stay above. They had zebra mussels on, which also proves that they're staying above, the mud, so that they can adhere to them. But, just doing stuff like that, it's so cool to go and really learn your system. And
Mhm.
especially out here on Lake Winnebago, we have a trawler in fall. So that helps us understand the young of the year that's in the system. And that helps determine the future of the system. And that's one good thing. Like Angelo, the fish biologist for this area, they spend a lot of time and research and making sure you know, that this system stays healthy with sturgeons, with, you know, all the other fish. And you really get a great understanding of what goes on this lake, you know, and system.
Mm-hmm.
Man, and I do just love talking about that lake or any lake because you always learn so much. I had no idea that the reefs were artificial. I just assumed that they were like rock piles or something. I always wondered like, why, how is that like that? Hearing from you now, this makes so much sense, but interesting to hear that they would even consider putting more in. So, I mean, I guess I know that you're like privy to some information, but is there a way that's best to like keep up with that local information? Do they put that out somewhere? Is there a way to hear about those going on?
It's interesting because I did post that on Facebook. A lot of people were like, "Hey, is there a report coming out and everything?" And I there isn't. You know, it's really become members of these fishing groups. I mean, if you're a local and you do fish that body of water, what's really happening with these fishing groups is they're really getting old. You know what I mean? And they really need the younger generation, you know, to come on board and help with the decision making of, you know, where it goes, and also help with the work. You know, I mean, like, I think it was in May, we were actually putting up signs around the cane beds just to inform people, just please try to stay out. We're just trying to save the cane beds because, you know, what's really cool is you do talk to the people that have lived on their lake for 80 years. I mean, they'll tell you the way it was 80 years ago, and it's no different. And it's like, wow, okay. And that might help people understand, okay, this is what it used to be, and now this is all that's left. Let's try to protect what we have. Because I mean, there's a lot of fish. They love just swimming around the cane beds. You know, I forgot this one bird that loves using it too to, you know, lay eggs on terns. You know, which is an endangered bird. It's amazing. You can be in fishing and it's like you learn a lot. But what I recommend is, hey, if you're on a body of water, get involved, you know, with the groups that support it, you know, because they do a lot. I mean, Lake Poygan, they've done so much to prevent erosion in the upper lakes, you know, and so there's many ways, you know, that people can help out, you know, especially like fundraisers and stuff like that.
Or picking up water balloons at the landing.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Sorry,
oh my
I had to
gosh.
get there.
Josh is okay. So here's the mini transition between that is like, you know, you can get involved in big ways in lake associations and the Facebook groups and all of that. But if you do not have that much time, because I totally understand there's kids and families and life and things going on. Just a mini plug, I guess, for loving your local boat landings, right? Because I don't know, at least where we're at in rural Wisconsin, like there aren't always people that get to like come and check up on it. Like there isn't even a garbage can that people come and empty, right? Like there's no boat launch fee. It's like down and dirty, right? And so you try to keep these places as nice as you can. And so we were fishing this lake the other day. Yesterday? Oh my gosh. and so we were like, I don't know, going along. And as we were kind of going by this one shoreline, we could see that there was an adult that had two children playing in the water at the boat ramp, which is something, first of all, don't swim at a boat ramp because it's like a road for boats. I don't know, whatever. It's not that busy. So I'm not here to judge that either, but this is the setup, because then we noticed that what they were doing is not just splashing water, but they were up there just like throwing all these water balloons just like at the ground, and they were kids and they were playing it and they did not know better. But as they were leaving in a very hasty way, the adult did not prompt the children to clean up any of the garbage, and they left even way more than just the water balloon pieces. And so we took a deep breath and knew this is like, if we don't do this, nobody is going to. And so, you know, I mean, like you hear all the things about balloons and litter, and I don't mean this to turn into this story, right? But I mean, just to go there and like, what it honestly take is like 5 or 8 minutes. And so it was super annoying, right? Like to have to clean up, right? To clean up all of somebody's garbage. But I mean, those are the things that do honestly make a difference to your local waterways.
To your community. You know, people, that's one of those things, I think, that it's not the act of cleaning itself. You know, we're not here to gather kudos for picking up a bunch of water balloons thrown by somebody else's kids, right? That's not the point of
No.
this. The point is that in the 15 minutes it took me to clean that up, we had 3 different people visit the boat launch with their dogs, just to get them a couple minutes of swimming, and then they left. But each one of those people saw me picking up that boat landing, and hopefully that encourages those people to do the same thing if they're utilizing that boat landing and they see, a piece of paper or bag, or just pick it up. Just pick it up. It's your community. Be proud of it.
Lead by example. I mean,
Yep.
It's the same thing. I ask the kids when they come on our fishing clinic, let's leave this part cleaner than when we came to it,
Right.
and that's just a mission, and hopefully you can do it, because those ducks, they swallow them balloons.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with fishing line. Oh, I've seen people, I've been in people's boat where they just snip it and they throw it overboard. I'm like, that has got to be one of the worst things for the wildlife around. They get wrapped up in it and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm always picking stuff up, or, you get a snag and you're pulling all this line, just keep pulling it in till the end, wrap it up, and make sure you get it in your trash bin when you get home.
Yeah.
Don't put it in the washing machine.
No.
Oh my gosh. Don't even look at what's in our lint trap right now. It's the plastics. It's always in the pockets. That's the problem. Okay. So we usually talk for about an hour, and we are nearing that. But before we let you go, one of the things that you talked about before the show was that there might be bass starting to bite, or they're biting now or about to. Tell us more about that.
Out here on Winnebago, it's just amazing on the size. We used to catch like a bunch of 10-inch bass, but now, last year in August, we got one that was just over 21, which is a dandy smallmouth. And off my dock this last week, I got pictures on Facebook, 5-pounders on the back. I caught them with redworms. They're just cruising around. But we also caught some other nice. We took one last week just over 20 out in the lake, off structure rock. So they're starting to come off the spawning areas and heading out, to do some hanging out in the structure out there.
Yep.
I always love when people catch like really great fish on like a little hook with a redworm.
I got a muskie. On the wall. I don't know. You can see him. He's sort of over there.
Yeah.
It's hard to say how you get this to work, but he's up on a wall, 52.5 inches, 38.5 pounds, caught on a CD5 Countdown Rapala.
Oh.
You think it was hooked just right in the beak versus,
yeah.
And you got a fish of a lifetime. Never would you ever see a muskie on a wall. It would be a replica now. But I also have a walleye that's mounted. That's 33.25. I really was holding off for 34, but 33.25, and it got certified at 13.12 in August.
Ooh.
Where did you catch that?
That was caught way up north, on the bay.
Okay. No, that's like
you'll see all the big pictures. We catch a lot of big fish, but I can tell you, after fishing up there for 20 years, I maybe even longer. I don't know if there's a 34-incher. There's a lot of stuff that's nice, but I've only caught 133. I've caught 32s, but not, only 133. And the funny thing is, when you fish as much as I do for walleyes, I knew when it hit the net. Just seeing it out there in the water with the net, I was like, that's it. You knew.
You knew, yeah. That is how that goes. That is so cool. Oh my gosh. Well, and
you guys coming up for a trip, huh?
Yeah, soon. Tomorrow? No, I think tomorrow's raining.
You and the wife have to come visit us. We'll show you around our new grounds.
Spot.
It's a lot quieter.
Well, yeah, my wife does like. That's the one thing she loves, catching crappies. This year on Bagel, she got one just over 14. So that is the cool thing. Big lake, plenty of bait. You get plenty of big opportunities,
Yeah.
That's why we always fish that river. I'm telling you, there are fish in that river that people would not believe.
Oh, and they got shoulders, huh?
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
that sounds like exactly what I say. Yes, you are right. It's exactly that. Oh my gosh. Man, I do really miss the river. Fishing lakes is a lot different. But I mean, that's the thing is you can find great fish everywhere. And it just depends on the tactics. And so get out there and learning them and trying something new. Ultimately, as long as you're catching fish, as long as I'm catching fish, it's fun.
Well, and you bring up a good point. When I was new to Lake Winnebago, I drove to the East Shore. That's 10 miles across. You know what? People, I'd say most of the time now, I probably do not drive more than a mile north or south. I mean, I have learned where I live. I know almost every rock, where it is, and just dissect part of that water and spend a lot of time on it and really learn it. So if I lived on a smaller lake, pick half the lake, and go and learn that half a lake. And then if you go out a few times after you really learned it and you have a few bad days, maybe you got to go find the other half, but don't worry about the whole lake at once, and use what maps you can, I'm a big map person, especially when I was fishing tournaments and that, I was fishing a lot of bodies of water that I never fished. So breaking down that water through the maps, even, I still teach people paper maps because you can pull it out, you can look at it, and you can figure it all out. You could, hey, if you catch a lot of fish here, put a little marker on there and say A, and then this is what I caught, and taking all those little things is how you're going to become a better fisherman,
Yep.
but don't try to do it all at once. Pick a couple topics, like you were saying, okay, I'm new to trolling. Okay, pick trolling, for a couple weeks, stick to it. And, and then if you got some issues with it, hey, you can go out on YouTube or talk to your friends, I mean, if people came up to you and asked you questions, you're going to try to help them out. We're all trying to help out an angler become better, right?
Yep.
That is true. That is that. I'm laughing because I did that too much in the boat yesterday. I was catching more fish than Josh, and I was like, "All you have to do is this," and then I didn't realize I was too much.
Who were you talking to? I guess the teacher became the student yesterday. A poor student at that.
So one thing I like to always to talk about, hey, if people want to help, let's see here, right here, learn to fish. Oh man, everything is so bad right here. Learn to fish with us. We're always looking for volunteers, especially for next year, because the one thing with us, we do travel all across. 2 weeks ago, I was in Tigerton, and so. And there I did another duty. I donated to, there's a camp that's up in Clintonville that is for disabled kids. And we donated fishing combos because the kids' number one activity there is fishing and their gear was terrible.
Oh.
But we travel. We're going to be down in Milwaukee. We do stuff in Oshkosh, Appleton. We're at Bay Beach. So we go all across. So if there's somebody there, hey, we can use the help, and who knows, maybe you'll find a little buddy.
Yeah.
And I think one time we helped you put some rods together. And so if you are the kind of person that maybe like kids aren't your thing and you want to like still help out, donate time, whatever, you have all kinds of ways that people can support you and your mission and all of that. And we put your website, I think, as a link in the comments. So if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn or any of these different places, you can click that. If you are listening to us later on the podcast, make sure to visit learntofishwithus.com.
The other special thing that our organization does is, like, we hosted a fishing clinic for big brothers, big sisters, gave them a fully rigged fishing pole because they might not have that opportunity, a pro shirt education book. And all the fishing clinics that we do for organizations, we do it for free. So, hey, if you want to become a donor or sponsor, we can always use the help, because, I spent probably a month and a half trying to raise the funds for next year. And, hosting 40 fishing clinics, we like to try to help the kids out in any way possible.
Yeah.
Mhm. And if somebody is interested in attending one of these events, do you have anything coming up that's open to the public, or are they all usually closed events?
So this year, we actually on Sunday, if you live on the southeast side pipe, there is a fishing clinic. So if you were to go to my Facebook page, you'd see an event and they give you the link because you must register before attending that event. And that, I believe, is our last public event. This year, we actually held 6 public events, which typically we're always partnering with groups, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Boys and Girls Clubs, to try to help other nonprofits, have something. And, so this year we've actually held more and we had great attendance. It's amazing, once you grow your following on Facebook, how you can actually get people to come from social media versus, putting up a poster at, a bait shop or something.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So we'll be definitely checking out your social media page, Facebook, your website, and all of that for information. And I might have heard, are you coming back to the Wisconsin Ice Fishing Expo? I know that's in December and it's a while out, but
I haven't heard anything yet. I'm pretty sure at least I'll do, one for the kids, but that's the other thing. It's so nice to be able to come out and just say, hey, it's not that, hey, I'm dorky Greg and I can talk fishing, but if you were to watch how much ice fishing I do, I'm a big ice fishing fiend. I love ice fishing, but it's just taking all the stuff that you learned over the years. Cause I've been same thing as open water. I've been ice fishing since I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I try a lot of different techniques. I mean, and that's it. Like, people don't understand drop shotting and my God, how good it is for panfish, bass, walleye, but we could go on forever.
But with the power of social media, you kind of can. And so definitely people at home should check out your different pages. I'm not sure that we'll have you on again someday. And I'm betting at some point we're even going to get out fishing with you because
I sure hope so, because, we'll build a little video,
Yeah. There you go.
And it would be a riot. It wouldn't just have to be fish catches.
Yeah.
That's
not.
for sure. Well, I can say I'm definitely looking forward to that. So hopefully we'll get to set that up ASAP. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here this evening.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
To the people at home, thank you guys for being here as well, because that is always a big part of the fun. And as always, looking forward to seeing everyone on next week's edition of The Night Bite.
Night, everybody.